Have you ever looked out at a vast, barren desert and seen only emptiness? Well, what if I told you that landscape could be transformed into a green, thriving, and productive farm? It might sound like magic, like alchemy, but it's actually a fascinating science. Let's explore step by step this remarkable process, the art of turning sand into living, breathing soil. So, that's the big question, isn't it? How do we get from this, a seemingly lifeless expanse of sand, to this, a rich, dark soil that's just teeming with potential? Well, it turns out there's a recipe.
Okay, so before we can start building, we have to understand what we're working with. And in this case, our foundation is sand. Now, it's best not to think of it as a problem. Think of it more like a blank canvas, just waiting for us to add the colors of life. You see, sand all on its own really can't support most crops. And that's because it's missing three essential things. It doesn't have organic matter for food, it lacks nutrients to feed the plants, and maybe the most critical part, it has no structure to hold on to water. Any water you pour on it just drains right through, gone in an instant. And this is the most important thing to grasp. We're not just improving soil that's already there. We are literally taking on the incredible challenge of creating soil entirely from scratch. It's a whole different way of thinking compared to traditional farming.
All right, so now we get to the really constructive part. And like I mentioned, we can think of this whole process as a kind of recipe, a recipe for creating the very foundation of a brand new ecosystem. And just like any good recipe, this one starts with 3 core ingredients. Now, these are the non-living, physical building blocks that are going to give our new soil the structure and the properties it needs to actually support life. First up, we need organic matter. So we're talking about things like compost, manure, even leaf mold. This stuff is basically the glue. It takes all those loose, individual sand particles and starts binding them together. This creates the very first hints of a real soil structure, and it kicks off that all-important nutrient cycle. Our next ingredient is clay. You know, if sand is great at letting water drain away, clay is its perfect partner because it's brilliant at holding on. The tiny clay particles cling to moisture and vital plant nutrients, acting like a little pantry and a water reservoir right there in the soil. And our third ingredient is something pretty special: biochar. Now, this isn't your regular backyard barbecue charcoal. It's made through a special process that makes it incredibly porous. Its structure acts like a high-tech sponge, soaking up water and providing millions of tiny homes for beneficial microbes. And the amazing part? A single application can keep working its magic for decades. Okay, so at this point, we've built the house, we've created the physical structure of our soil. But right now, it's an empty house. It's time to move the residents in, to introduce the spark that turns this inert mixture into a living, breathing entity. You see, healthy soil is powered by an invisible engine, a thriving community of microbes. We get this engine started by adding life in a few key ways. Things like compost tea, special blends of bacteria called effective microorganisms, and mycorrhizal fungi, which form this amazing partnership with plant roots. These are the tiny workers that really make the whole system run. Now, in a desert, the sun can be absolutely relentless. That's why putting down a thick layer of mulch, like straw or wood chips, is a total game changer. It acts like a protective shield for our new soil, keeping it cool, slashing water evaporation, and, as a bonus, it slowly breaks down and feeds all those microbes we just added. Creating the soil is only half the battle. We also have to be really smart about how we water it. Old methods like flood irrigation are just incredibly wasteful in a place like this. Most of the water is just lost. That's why drip irrigation is an absolute must. It delivers water drop by drop exactly where it's needed, at the plant's roots, with almost zero waste. So we've got our living soil, we've got our smart water strategy. Now we can shift our focus to the really rewarding part, planting. But we're not just growing crops here. We're establishing an entire new, resilient ecosystem from the ground up. But you don't start with something sensitive like lettuce. No, you start with the pioneers. These are the super hardy plants, the tough guys like acacia, mesquite, and moringa. They can handle the harsh conditions, and as they grow, they actually keep improving the soil, adding nitrogen and creating shade for the more delicate plants that we'll introduce later on. And of course, protection is everything for new growth. We need to create a little safe haven, a microclimate. That means planting trees as windbreaks to stop those drawing desert winds, and using shade nets to shield the young, fragile plants from the most intense hours of sun. So after all this work, building, inoculating, protecting, and planting, we finally arrive at the moment we've been waiting for, the final transformation from a barren landscape to a truly bountiful one. It really is an incredible journey when you lay it all out. We start with nothing but barren sand. Then, through this careful process, we create living soil. We nurture that first pioneer growth, and that paves the way for something that once seemed impossible: lush, productive farmland. And the signs of true success are just unmistakable. When the earthworms start returning to the land, that's when you know you've really created a true ecosystem. The organic matter keeps on building year after year, and the soil becomes rich enough to support a whole range of different crops. And that leaves us with a really powerful thought to end on. Perhaps what we perceive as barren and empty is just a beginning. Where we see only sand, maybe nature, with a little bit of our help, sees a garden just waiting to happen.